What's going on, everybody? It's Ricky with Videohomicide. Welcome back to 31 Days of Horror 2022 edition. We're going to keep it going with another film from 1987 directed by Joel Schumacher, who of course did some really shitty films and some really cool films that I really like. And we've got The Lost Boys today. So Lost Boys, of course, starring Kiefer Sutherland. Trying to remember that other dude's name. Jason Patric. It's got Corey Feldman in it. It's got Corey Haim in it. It's got tons of, sort of noticeable actors from that era. Of course, the Coreys were like a big fucking thing back then. But The Lost Boys, man, this is a movie that I remember when my dad first showed me it. Like, this is the type of guy my dad is, right? So we'd go out to the flea markets, pawn shops, all that stuff, and he'd always look at the movies, look at the records and stuff. And remember when he stumbled across The Lost Boys, and we watched it for the first time, and just the opening of that film, like with the security guard that gets totally just pummeled and fucking who knows what happens to him, and he like tells like all the vampires, like David and all them, he goes, get off the boardwalk, and like all the vampires, like they look like total badasses, leather coats, fucking cool hair, like the whole nine. They ride motorcycles, like everything you think of that's cool in a 1980s film is in this film, but it's also a vampire flick and a good vampire flick. Vampires is obviously a genre that's either gotten a lot of love or a lot of hate. There's a lot of films in the genre, everything from Dracula to Twilight, and I've gave those Twilight films a fucking chance once, and it just wasn't for me. I could see the interest, I could see the intrigue that people get from it, but it was not for me. But The Lost Boys is definitely for me. Of course, it opens up again with an amazing song by The Doors, People Are Strange, one of my favorite songs, but too fucking short. That song is too short. Like a lot of the Doors songs, like they're like 7-8 minutes long, and then you get People Are Strange, which is like my favorite song they do next to Riders on the Storm or This Is the End. But it's just so fucking short. But anyways, I love like the whole, every shot of all these like freaks and misfits on the, I think it's Santa Carla they live, the murder capital of the world. But basically, I assume you've seen the film, so I'm not going to give you the fucking whole breakdown of the movie, just shit that I love. So I love the look of the vampires. I love the look of Michael, played by Jason Patric, who's like this guy that's from like, Arizona or some shit, and just trying to fit in really. And he sees this chick, gets enamored by this chick named Star, who is actually, he's supposed to be like her first victim, but he ends up winding up like being buddy with David, played by Kiefer, and all those guys, and they basically get him to drink this stuff called blood wine. My dad always used to say, get the blood wine. Like he would say that, like he still says that shit to this day. Like if he's got wine, he'd be like, give me the blood wine. And it's just like a little gag, like shit. That's one of the things about like me and my dad's relationship is like it's built through cinema basically. Like we could sit here and talk in fucking quotes, but I love that interaction where he drinks the blood wine and like they're eating the Chinese food, and like I always imagined like in my head like there was a guy like going to deliver Chinese food, and then that dude, I think it was Marco, just like kills his ass, takes the Chinese food, goes back to the cave. Speaking of the cave, what a cool fucking place they live. Again, with the Jim Morrison picture on the wall, which is cool as hell. And I love like their whole explanation. Like this was a place. This was a awesome place back in whatever time until the big hurricane hit or the fucking earthquake, whatever it was. Love that shit. But I love like the slow transformation that Michael goes through in this film. Like with all of his, wearing his glasses in the house and like sleeping all day, and the brother taking notice, and the brother being like enamored by like comic books and keep going to this comic book store that's run by Corey Feldman and his buddy, the Frog Brothers, which is like a cool fucking concept on its own. And like they're basically vampire hunters, and they have this comic called Must Destroy Vampires or some bullshit like that. And cool comic. I wish I owned a copy of that. Finally got my hands on a Creepshow comic like a couple years ago, but I would love to have that. I know people have remade those, reproduced those, so that might be something of interest to check out eventually, but some of my favorite scenes in this movie are definitely the scene at the train trestle where they all sort of hang from it, and they all jump down, and Michael takes like the leap of faith, and like he has like this weird thing where he's like going through the clouds like, oh. It's like Mario, like Super Mario 3, like when you fucking when you beat a castle and like you fall through the sky or whatever. Love that shit. I love the old man, the grandpa in this film, who has like a slew of one-liners. I'm not even going to begin to try to count, but if you read the TV guide, you don't need the TV and all that shit. And like, the scene like right before they kind of talk about the TV guide, and Corey Haim and Jason Patric are running through the house. They open up the door, and it's like all this like shit, and they're like, talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, I always like thought, like, when I was a little kid, I thought like that, like he meant like the grandpa was doing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre type shit. And that made the old man even more creepier to me. Like, and he had like this obsession with all these fucking stuffed animals. Like, weird shit, man, but cool as hell. I love when David and the gang show Michael like what they really are, and they kill like all those punk rockers that are partying on the beach. It's like a very graphic scene, and the way the vampires look in this movie is fucking awesome. Spot on makeup job, man. I love this stuff. I think that they all look really good. I love, of course, when Corey Haim and the Frog brothers, and they all go and they try to kill the vampires and stuff. I love the quote, "Where are the coffins?" And he's like, "That's what this place is. It's one great big coffin." I love that shit, man. Like, horror movies are so fucking fun. I don't know. I don't understand people that don't like them. You know, people love The Office. I've watched a few episodes of The Office. Can't fucking get into it. So I know that's like a phenomenon of a show where a lot of people love it. Well, horror movies are like the same thing. Like, a lot of people love it, but you know, I don't know. I think that it's so cool. I love when the vampires show up at the house at the end of the film, and the one guy that's like a blonde dude is like, "You killed Marco," and they're like got holy water and shit, and they're like, "Holy water don't work, boys," and they fucking splash the garlic in his face, and like garlic does work. And like the interaction with the father of the vampires, we'll call him, I forget what his name was, but I love how they invite him for dinner, or he's invited for dinner, and like putting the Parmesan cheese, but it's garlic, and he's like, Corey Haim and the Frog Brothers are so like obsessed with proving he's a vampire, but like it keeps sort of falling flat on their face. Love that shit, man. And I love at the end how that guy ends up being like the head vampire, and you know, it's one of those movies that like kind of tells you its rules, you know, and I like that. I like movies that have rules, like Nightmare on Elm Street, some of the later Elm Street films and shit like that. They have these rules set up where, you know, they follow a formula in terms of how the evil is dealt with. You know, which isn't something that they do too much nowadays. Like, now it's kind of like, you know, like The Conjuring. It's like, okay, you know that they're gonna solve the fucking case at the end, and that's it, you know. And you know that fucking, forget what his name was, but it's Lorraine Warren and whatever the husband's name is. Like, he's always gonna almost die but doesn't. I don't mind those movies though, to be perfectly honest. I'm not shitting on the Conjuring films. I'm just saying that, you know, compare the Conjuring to Lost Boys, I think like it's night and day. Although Conjuring was probably more scary because there's more like, you know, ominous music and jump scares and that kind of shit. With Lost Boys, it's scary, but it's also cool. You know, it's got that coolness to it. I don't even know what the fuck you could double feature this with. Don't double feature it with any of the sequels. I mean, I watched them. I just wasn't into them, you know. The one was cool because it had that cool concept of like this drug, but it was vampire blood. That's cool, but the rest of them, don't really give a fuck about them. I liked seeing the Frog Brothers back again, but other than that, not really for me, man. I appreciate their effort in trying to, like, you know, to make a sequel like years later with some of the same characters. Like, that's admirable, but for the most part, it's kind of like, dude, this isn't that great. Although the vampires looked all right, but I'm going to leave it at that, man. I appreciate everybody for watching. Sticking forward, or, you know, sticking with me throughout the 31 Days of Horror. Lost Boys, I know it's not exactly like, you know, like an exploitation-y type film or anything like that, kind of trying to, you know, delve into stuff that I either haven't really seen or, you know, really love and want to talk about that's not, you know, it's outside of the mainstream. But sometimes you gotta talk about shit you love, man, and I fucking love Lost Boys. I think it's great. I love the concept of like the Lost Boys as well, like being like related to the Peter Pan like story. Like, all that shit is just badass. Like, Joel Schumacher, like, he made those Batman flicks, and like, you either love those or you hate those. I'm impartial on them. Like, I watched them when I was a kid, like, a lot, because that's what we watched when we were kids. But it wasn't until I found out he did Falling Down. I think Falling Down is a fucking awesome movie. I know a lot of people, kind of film snobby people, like, talk shit about it. I love it. I think Falling Down is a great flick. So if you haven't seen Falling Down starring Michael Douglas, definitely check that shit out. Is it Kirk Douglas or Michael Douglas? One of those fucking Douglas dudes. So with that being said, I appreciate everybody for watching. Make sure you leave a 666 in the comments. With that being said, adios, happy Halloween. Let the horror marathon continue.